sea of red, it's time for another Fireside Chat, the official podcast of Flames fans. It's go time.
Well, the Calgary Flames go into the Four Nations face-off with a disappointing week, 4 games, and only managed 1 win. I'm Dan alongside Matt. Matt, I think we both you expected this result. I was expecting something a little bit better this week from the Flames.
Yeah, right result, wrong Seattle game was
you thought they'd win the Hockey Night in Canada Seattle game at the Dome, and they ended up winning the other one.
Yep.
Well, let's jump into these and talk about them. The first game of the week and the only win for the Flames. They made a short trip up to, or I guess down to Seattle, played at the Climate Pledge Arena. And Morgan Frost scored for the Flames in this one. Got the first goal on the board along with Sharon Govich and Jonathan Huberdeau. And the Flames ended up with a 3-2 win over the Kraken. What were your thoughts on this one?
I thought the first period was a little bit interesting. The Kraken actually opened the scoring, but it was called back due to a good coach's challenge by the Flames. And then Seattle had one of the most baffling coaches' challenges on the Sharon Govich one, which led to a 5-on-3, allowing Huberdeau to score 2, and that ended up being the game winner.
That's one of those great, when somebody says, well, why do you not just want to coach challenge everything? That's why, because you get a penalty and it can hurt you.
Yes. And in this case, it literally cost Seattle the game, so not the best decision by whoever was in charge of their video room, but good on Pringle for getting a goal back.
Yeah, I mean, the Calgary Flames, Mike Pringle's their video coach, and it's, he's doing, you don't see the guy on the bench because he's in the background doing his video stuff, but I think we need to give him credit for what he's done. He's done a really good job, and I think the Flames have the best record right now for video review.
Yeah, we've actually been successful eight times that the Flames have been successful with their coaches' challenges, which is number 1 in the NHL.
Yeah, I called him Mike Pringle, Jamie Pringle. Yeah, you're right. It's a good piece for them, and Jamie obviously has that eye for what he should do, and the coach obviously trusts him too to give him that information. So there's a guy, even though you don't see him as much, that you want to stay on this coaching staff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Flames came home, played the rest of the game at home in the Dome before they left. The next game, the Toronto Maple Leafs came for their one annual game here a year. Nylander got a hat trick as the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Flames 6-3. The Flames got scoring from Coronado, Sharon Govich, and Joel Farabee. And, like we said, Nylander gets 3, John Tavares, Bobby McMahon, and Matthew Nyes for the Maple Leafs. What were your thoughts on this one?
I thought the Flames played okay for the first half of the game. The Leafs coach's challenge, I did not agree with the call on that one. Farabee scored in the first period and it was waved off. With the goalie being outside the crease and Huberdeau's stick interfering with him while the puck was behind him, I don't understand how that was called back.
What? Not agreeing with NHL officiating? That never happens.
But, and then the Leafs exploited Tyson Barrie throughout this contest and scored several times while he was on the ice. And, it's not all his fault, but, the team's defense really let Wolf down. With so many breakaways with elite scorers, there's only so much anybody can do. And, any goalie in the NHL would have given up 4 or 5 minimum in this game.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying about Seattle. And as we know, that was a very, I would say, emotionally charged game for the Flames. You could see it in what was happening. I think that this one, I was just looking for more emotion, especially after that Seattle game. It just seemed like there was not that much emotion from the Flames. They came out, it's almost like they knew that they were going to come out to a loss here. And like you said, Toronto, a much better team than the Calgary Flames, and it looked like it. And, hard for any goalie to save those pucks from those elite scorers. It's something that you're going to have to get your goalie to be able to do if you want to be competitive. But for a rookie in the league, I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised that Toronto ran all over Calgary.
No, and typically the games with the Leafs are very high scoring anyway because, their team doesn't really play defense very much. Like Tanev's their only good defender in their own zone. And, like usually like these games are like 5-4, 6-5, that kind of thing. The Flames, like their offensive games, not as good as years past, so we only managed 3 in this one, but not really a surprising result.
No, and, I don't think the Leafs have the best goaltending, but the rest of their team makes up for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Colorado Avalanche came to town, another team that we know they struggled early, but they ended up, getting their game together and don't seem like they've really been affected by the big trade all that much, at least on the ice. They got a 4-2 victory over the Flames of the Dome. Makar scored his 20th, and McKinnon got 3 assists in this one. Wolf made 30 saves, but still the Flames lost 4-2 with Huberdeau and Rasmus Andersson getting the goals for the Flames. I'll start with my thoughts here. I thought, sort of like the Leafs game, I just thought the Flames looked like they kind of knew that they were going out against a better team, and I thought the compete level just wasn't where it needed to be.
Yes, and I do have to comment on the big trade that they made. Marty Necas, I thought that like everybody was kind of expecting, well, he'll be a good filler guy for the Avalanche after giving up Rantanen, and that they downgraded their team, et cetera, et cetera. Honestly, Necas is looking better than when Rantanen was there, and that's saying something considering how good Rantanen is. It's very rare.
Fair, it's only been a few games though.
True, but very rarely do you see a guy come in and play that effectively with the new team. And like he's over a point per game with them since being there, and it's nice to see somebody who is probably not used 100% correctly in Carolina, which is why he was a little bit disgruntled there. Just unfortunately, he kind of took that out on the Flames in this one, but no, the Flames as a whole, like since the Frost and Farabee trade, their overall chemistry seems to have been disrupted by that, and like they were playing fairly effectively without Ball for the first handful of games after he got hurt, and like everybody seemed to be buying in and trying their hardest in each of the games, and the results were middling. But since that trade, whatever cohesion the team has had seems to have fallen off the rails quite a bit. And like they did not seem as enthusiastic or engaged in this one. And frankly, Calgary does not have the talent to be able to pull off games if they're not going at 100%.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment. And the last game of the week, this time Seattle came to Calgary. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this one, considering some of the emotions from their game earlier in the week. The Flames got an early 2-goal lead in this one, held a lead for most of the game, I would say. Morgan Frost scores the first one in the second, Kadri scores the second one in the third, and then they let that lead go, and Shane Wright and Burakovsky get goals to tie it up, and then the overtime, Matty Beniers ended up scoring here. I think, to me, I guess the best way to sum this up is what Uyghur said after the game. We pissed this one away. Like, you had a 2-goal lead. It was
7 minutes left.
Yeah, it was yours to defend.
Yeah, and it was just carelessness that led to both of the goals. Like, a bad clear, which resulted in a point shot that was redirected by Wright in front of the net. And then Huberdeau panicking because he was the last man back instead of just dumping the puck up the ice, caused the turnover, which led to Burakovsky tying it. And those two mental mistakes cost the Flames the game. And I don't agree with the Frost penalty in overtime. He pushed the guy. I don't see how that's holding, but
when you watch it, I can see where the refs would have thought it was holding.
Yes, but also, like multiple views of it, like that was a very chintzy call, and one of those where, as much as you don't like to see makeup calls, the refs should have been on the eye, because it's overtime. Like, you only call like the most blatant of things, and like, if that was a penalty in the first period, fine, but like you'd be going, wow, that was a dumb call, but. In overtime, like, you have to be damn sure that that's a penalty in order to call it. And it was not very clear, unless you're whatever the ref was seeing when he called it. It just seemed like a very bad call. And, the fans were chanting, "Refs, you suck," for a, good 30
fans
seconds.
Chant that a lot in the Saddledome this season.
Yes, and it is what it is. The Flames, again...
I like their game, though. Like, I like the game the Flames played. I thought they played pretty consistently the whole game, but yeah, that last 7 minutes...
Well, even the clearing, like, when they had the puck and got it out of the zone, like, they didn't get all the way down the ice, which led to the quick transition, which allowed Beniers to score as well, and... it's one of those things where, like, the Flames more or less shot themselves in the foot with each of the goals against, where, if they had just followed through with simple plays instead of trying too hard, like, they would have, not gotten to overtime or lost, but, things like this happen.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I have talked about some of the mental challenges of the Calgary Flames in the past. I won't harp on those again. But what is, I think, worth pointing out here, two things. First was some of the lineup changes. So we saw Ilya Solovyev brought up from the Wranglers, as well as Dryden Hunt brought up from the Wranglers. Both guys in the game for this one. So the first line was Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and Matt Coronado on the right. Second line was Sharon Govich with Frost and Farabee. Then we had Blake Coleman, Backlund, and Hunt. And then Ryan Lomberg, Kevin Rooney, Marty Pospisil as the fourth line. On the back end, Soloviev paired up with Anderson, Uyghur with Mirmanov, and Bean with Pakal. Joel Hanley was not in the lineup here because he went home. His wife was having a baby, from what I understand. So congratulations to the Hanleys. What did you think of this lineup change?
I thought Soloviev played relatively well and was a calm, steady defender. I think that on a whole... the defense pairing with him and Anderson was not at their best in this game, but I thought that Soloviev played his part well, and if he was being like the 5'6" defender that he is, then, he would have been a good addition to the lineup, but, Ball not being in the lineup, it causes all sorts of problems, and I think that based off of one game, I would prefer to see Soloviev remain with the team for the coming stretch run, because frankly he played better than any of Mirmanov, Barry, Bean, or Hanley, and I think that he deserves a spot in the lineup over all of those players.
Yeah, I mean,
and even last year,
size.
Well, even last year, like he basically played the same level of game he did last year. So, adding like past record of his play into it, like he just is a very composed defensive defenseman, which frankly this team needs.
Yeah, I could see him come up here. I still think that based on what we've talked about, the fact that I think they want the Wranglers to run, I think he'll probably go back down there at least for a while, just to kind of get the Wranglers the defense they need as well. And I think definitely during the Four Nations face-off break, he goes down there. We'll see what happens after that. But I think, at least next year, he'll probably get a long look for the roster. With some guys like Barry not being here, I think he'll probably just take Barry's spot. I liked him. I don't know if I would keep him on the first pair, especially when Ball is healthy.
No, and like realistically, like I would have Uyghur with, insert any of Bean, Mirmanov, or Hanley, Ball and Anderson, and Soloviev with Pahal as the third pairing. And, frankly, if you had Soloviev with Pahal. I think that's one of the better third pairings that we would have had on the defensive side of things in a while.
Yeah, I could see that. Excuse me. Dryden Hunt.
I thought he was terrible.
Yeah?
Yeah. The Flames really need to figure out how to get a NHL body into the lineup instead of, and I know Zari's coming back, but you can get away with one tweener guy, but when you have Rooney and Hunt or Bishop or insert player here, like it's very hard to shelter those guys because like they kind of bring their whole line down. And like I thought the Backlund line was the worst of the four lines yesterday because of Hunt dragging the other two down that much, because so many passes and plays died on his stick. And it's not Hunt's fault that he got put on the second line, but like he did not fit at all.
No, I mean, if we look at his whole body of work as a Flame this year and last year, I really liked what we saw from him last year. And I think, like you said, he was put in the wrong spot this year because they needed a body, and I understand why they did it. I understand why they brought Clark Bishop in, but you're pushing these guys too high up the lineup. And this is what we've talked about in the past, of bringing up the right guy from the farm to fill the right need at the right time. I don't think the Dryden Hunt, I understand why they probably want him to get that look, but he's really a bottom six forward if you're going to bring him into the NHL.
Yeah, and like this would have been a better opportunity to put Stromgren into the lineup in that role if you're going to put somebody from the farm in to, have like two very responsible players with the rookie. Like that would have made more sense than a guy that is a fourth line 13th forward guy. Like it would have made more sense to put Pospisil up on that second line and basically play your fourth line 5 minutes instead than doing what they did.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're coming from. I did like Sharon Govich, Frost, and Farabee together. I mean, I think last week that's one of the pairings I said I would use, and I think Frost and Farabee come in with some chemistry, and I think breaking those guys up maybe wasn't the best way to at least get them acclimatized here. I think I would keep those guys together based on what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sharon Govich is a great line mate for them. Yeah, well, we'll leave it at that. And I also think Coronado, good that he's been one of our best players all year. So good for him for getting on that top line.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that the Flames will have to cycle everybody through. Like I could see Zari going on that line and moving Coronado back down with Backlund and Coleman once everybody's healthy. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, let's go to that. You mentioned Ball earlier, and we've got Ball, we've got Zari. Both of them are expected to be back shortly after the Four Nations face-off. So if the team gets a couple-week break, that really takes Dryden Hunt out of the lineup. That takes Soloviev out of the lineup, which I think, again, is fine. Those guys are call-ups. I don't think anybody else comes out of the lineup except maybe Rooney that's in there right now for forwards. How would you just take Dryden Hunt out and essentially put Zari in and figure out where to slot him?
Pretty much for right now. And it depends on where the Flames are at the trade deadline. Like, it's hard to get NHL bodies, and unless like the Flames are playing broker where, hey, we'll take bad contract here that's expiring just to, and use that guy as the filler fourth line player. I do believe they need to get one more NHL body into the forward group and one NHL body on the blue line. How they achieve that, who knows? Like if that's just taking a bad contract or whatever, we'll see. But if they want to make a playoff push, they cannot play 4 or 5 AHL bodies and expect to actually win. Like especially with the quality of their competition that's coming up, like they will get their head shoveled in.
Well, and this goes to what we've known about this team. Of yes, it's nice they're having success, and we're seeing that from them. But this is still a team that is a rebuilding team, and this roster shows it, and some of these holes show it, as you've mentioned. And let's wait and talk about the trade deadline stuff till our next show, the week before the trade deadline. But looking at, until we get there, I think, you put Zari in the lineup. Where you put him, I think, is up for debate. Like I said last week, would probably try him with Frost and Farabee. I think that could be an interesting group. I think, put him with Backlund Coleman. I think there's a lot of options there, but I think just getting him back and then getting Ball back, I think is going to be more impactful. Really, this team's got 3, let's say, everyday NHLers in Weegar, Anderson, and Ball. The rest are just kind of filler pieces they needed last year because they needed bodies in the blue line. That's where I really think that
Hall, to his credit, has, I think, established him as a legit number 6, and a good number 6, but... the rest of the guys, though, are all number 7s, and it's hard to get by when you have 3 number 7s in your lineup.
Yeah, so. I know what you're saying about Bahal, and I agree for this year. My question is, does he keep it up? I mean, it sort of reminds me of Shillington, right? We got one good year out of Shillington, and even this year, I'd say he's not looking all that fantastic with another team. I think there's some excitement there, but I think we need to really look at what does he do next year?
I agree.
And can he keep this up? And it's good to see there's some promise there. I mean, if we look at Shillington this year, he's only played 9 games for Colorado. A guy that went to a better team and still can't crack the lineup. And I think that says something about the player.
Mm-hmm.
1 goal, 1 assist for 2 points and a -3. And some of those games he played, at least one, he was even a forward. He was so bad at being their defenseman, they want to move him to a different position just to get a body in the lineup.
Yeah, and it's tough, this league. And, at least Pahal has shown enough to stay, whether he, slots down as a number 7 or 8 next year or moving forward. Still to be seen, as you said, but, for now, he's a really good number 6.
Yep. And, whether we like it or not, some of these guys are going to be here this year, next year, because they've got contracts and the Flames don't have a lot of other options, and that's fine for me during a rebuild. But I think, the defense is where we're going to see the return be much more impactful. I think bringing Ball back, you have less of these random pieces, like you were saying, these AHL call-ups, and you have far more of at least a top 4 steady NHL defense, which is going to help the team a lot. I think you'll notice that more than you'll notice Zari come back. But if these guys are going to make a run for the playoffs, you really want to be at your full strength. And I think that bringing those 2 guys back will have the promise, potentially, of getting the Flames into the playoffs. And if we look at where they are now, they're, after 55 games, 26 wins, 21 losses, and 8 overtime losses for 60 total points. They're outside the wild card now. Vancouver has 63 points and Colorado 68, who are in the wild card. So Calgary just outside of that. I mean, right now outside of a playoff spot. So
realistically, they're closer to being the 7th worst team in the NHL than they are to Colorado or LA. So they've kind of boxed themselves into a bit of a corner with their more recent losing streak. So,
well, yeah, I mean, if we look at that, Calgary has 60 points. They're tied with Columbus, Boston, which is weird to say. The Rangers are 58, the Islanders 57, Montreal 55, Utah 55, St. Louis 55, the Penguins 55, the Flyers 55, and then you've got Anaheim, Seattle, Buffalo, Nashville, and Chicago, and San Jose, obviously. San Jose only has 37 points.
They're very good.
Like, we think we could be a bad team. I don't even think if the Flames did the worst we could have seen, that they would have had less points than that.
Well, realistically, for the Flames to get that bad, Huberdeau, Kadri, Weegar, and Anderson would have to go, and you'd have to put Wolf in the closet somewhere and hide him. Because even with Wolf, I think that the Flames would probably be around where Nashville is. If you got rid of all those other guys. So, not very good, the Sharks.
I I really think moving forward for the Flames, though, it's going to be pretty much every game make or break. Like, you're going to be playing hokey pokey with that playoff spot. You're going to be in, then you're going to be out, then you're going to be in, then you're going to be out. And I don't see the Flames putting together enough of a run to solidify that. I think it's going to come down to the fact that, you know what, when we're at that last week of the season, it's going to be, win your way in or don't. And these guys are going to be in control of their own destiny, which is exactly how I think it should be. But seeing a week like this, I get less optimistic that this is a playoff team.
Yeah, and if you look ahead to their remaining schedule, like they have 3 games against San Jose, who are the worst team in the NHL. They have 3 games against the bottom 6 teams besides that. 5 against the teams that are between 20th and 25th. 3 against from 10 to 15, and then 13 games against the top 10 in the NHL, including 6 against the top 5. So it's not going to be easy. Like, they play the top 5 as much as they play the bottom, 10. So it's going to be very tough for the Flames.
Yeah, I mean, even looking when they get back from the break, they have San Jose at home, and then they'll play Washington and Tampa Bay, Florida, and Carolina. The Hurricanes all in one week. Like, that's kind of 1 week of games. Most of those on the road, right? Then we've got Philly, Dallas, Montreal, Vancouver, Colorado, Toronto again, New York Rangers, the Devils, the Islanders. Like, yeah, it's going to be a tough week for them. What I do think is going to be interesting, though, Matt, is a lot of these are games against the East. So if you're giving up points, you're not helping somebody else out. Like, when we give up points to Colorado, we're helping them directly compete against us. We give up points to, I guess not as bad for Seattle, but still competing against us. Like, if you drop these games, you're not pushing somebody else up against you.
Mm-hmm. And, it's going to be a really tough month of March. And thankfully, the Flames have 7 games before the trade deadline, which that will help to really cement one way or another where they're at. And it does not help that 5 of those 7 games are against, the league's best. So, it will be very obvious after that 7-game stretch whether the Flames are alive or they've fallen into the bottom 10. And because, they're not very far above that bottom 10. And if they, say, lose 5 out of the 7, they will quickly find themselves in that grouping.
Yeah. I think it's do or die time for this team. I think that this is where we're going to find out very quickly what they are. I mean, they have a busy March ahead of them. They've got a busy, start of April too, but a busy March, which you're going to have when, with the tournament taking up some time. But really, they have 1 3-day break, and that's really the longest break of the month. There's going to be a grueling schedule for these guys. They've got to stay healthy, and I'm kind of glad that none of them are outside Anderson going to the 4 Nations, because I think it gives everybody a chance to heal up and rest up, because they're going to need it.
Yes. And realistically, what the Flames do at the trade deadline, I think, will be determined by the 7 games that they play. And, if they're, say, on the losing end of most of those games, you're not going to see the Flames be buying anybody at the trade deadline. And even if they did, say, go 5-2 in those 7 games, they'll probably just add filler depth at that point. So, not really expecting the Flames to shed too many draft picks or anything, and perhaps just fill spots via cap dumps from other teams.
Which I think is, and we'll talk more about this as we get into March, but I think that's the most prudent thing for them to do right now.
Yeah, and also, realistically, they don't have much to sell other than Dan Vladar. So,
well, that's the big thing. I don't think that Anderson gets done this year if they're going to do it. I think that would be imprudent in a way to do that now. So, I think all you've really got is Dan Vladar, and I don't know what that value looks like, especially if you start losing games. Mm-hmm. Also, we see the Flames not do well when the times change on them. There's a lot of start time variation here. I mean, if we take a look, even just, coming back, they play 6 p.m. against the Sharks, 5 p.m. against Washington, 5 p.m. against the Lightning, 1 p.m. against the Florida Panthers, 3 p.m. against the Hurricanes, 5 p.m. against the Flyers, 6 p.m. against Dallas, then a 5, 7, 7, 5, 5, 5, 2, 7, 7, 8, 6:30, and then 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, 8, 8, 6, 7, 8:30. Like, if you're a Flames fan who's built your evenings around 7 p.m. starts, you're going to be rushing home from work for a lot of these games.
Yeah, it's definitely an all-over-the-map kind of schedule the rest of the way, especially the 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. back-to-back on the first and second.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be tough. Like, the Flames are, well, every team is pretty bad in the afternoon games, but then you're playing two of the league's best on weird hours in a back-to-back.
And really, if you think about it, like, the 1 o'clock game will end about 3, so they start again 24 hours later.
Yeah. Like, it's, and that includes, like, traveling up to Carolina and all that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be a fun time.
No. So, I mean, as you can see by a lot of these times, this is a big Eastern swing that we've got. So, maybe they'll set their watches and become very familiar with the Eastern time. Who knows? But it's going to be a weird month. And this is where I think, and I know we've said this before, but with the Flames towing that last wild card spot so closely and in and out, I think by the end of, I think by the deadline you hope I don't know if we will, but I think that this is going to be the month that they have to go better than 500 in March. Yeah,
and well better. Like they need to get about 65% of the points, whether that's wins or overtime losses. Like they can't be just skating by at 500. Like they need to be well above it. And
I think
schedule, that's a tall order.
I think this is a month where you're not just looking at the score on the board, you're looking at how they did against these teams. Are they competing well against top teams? If they're not, it's not worth investing in them by bringing in pieces, as you were saying. If they are, maybe it's worth the investment.
Yeah, and realistically, like, based on the quality of the competition, like, they are likely going to fall down into the bottom 10, based on, like, the Flames actually do have one of the hardest remaining schedules out of every team in the NHL. And, the wheels could easily fall off the wagon hard in March. So, that top 10 protected pick might still be okay. So, we'll see. It's just hard because, like, the last 2 weeks have been really terrible for the Flames, and I don't see it getting any better anytime soon.
And the other big question I have there, and obviously we won't know the answer until we're back, but sometimes after that break, the Flames will look terrible, right? They've maybe gone to, Mexico or whatever and party a little too hard and look terrible. And then some years they've looked okay. I don't think I've ever seen them look fantastic. They've looked okay.
Yeah, and so they really have to hit the ground running, and like any losses in the first 4 or 5 games really sets them behind the 8 ball because they have to catch up, frankly. And the only way to do that is to outwin the teams you're chasing. And when you're basically playing murderer's row after the San Jose game, it's not going to be easy.
Exactly. So these guys have to be ready to go, right away. They've got to hit the ground running because if it takes them a week to get back into shape or to, get going again, I would say, 2-3 game losing streak is going to put you behind that 8 ball. And that's going to be a detriment to them. If they can stay healthy, I think looking at or when I say healthy, let's say in game shape, because no one's getting injured, I hope, during the Four Nations face-off at the pool at their resort. But if they can stay in game shape, I think that they can make a little bit of a surprise when they come back because they're going to be playing teams that had guys in the Four Nations face-off, some key guys in the Four Nations face-off, and I think you might get other guys that are tired or things like that. So there's an advantage for the Flames, I think, if they can take advantage of it, at least for that first week.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's going to be a crazy schedule, Matt, and a lot of road games, as we said, too.
And the Flames don't generally play well on the road anyway. Most of their bread and butter this season has been their home just as like trying to be as impartial as possible, like if I had to bet on a team falling hard in the standings, it would be Calgary. And that's not a slight to anything they've done. They've had a wonderful season to this point, but I just don't see it based on like all the good teams, like they tend to ramp it up as they get into March, and
especially some of these good teams, the things maybe we're not accounting for, are going to get extra support at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and like realistically, like they're battling for position because say like a team like Dallas, they don't want to play Colorado in the first round, so like they're going to be trying extra hard to catch Winnipeg. And so like they're not going to be taking the foot off the gas at all, and like the games matter just as much to them as they do to us, but they have like an actual first line where Calgary has like 3 second lines, and it's a big difference.
Yeah, just looking at some of these trips, like let's look at the one right after the break. So they go to Washington, then they go to Tampa Bay to Florida, not too bad. Florida to Raleigh, not bad, but then they go all the way over to Philadelphia and then to Dallas. Like that's going to be a tough part of that swing. And I don't know why they're doing Philadelphia there when they're doing their New York swing a week later. Like,
yeah. Well, and then they come all the way back. Like they only have a day off, and then they play an early game against Montreal, which basically is like another road game for them because of the 5 o'clock hour instead of the 7 or 8 p.m. hour in Calgary. And, it's kind of like an Eastern game that's in the West.
Yeah, and that's the day after the deadline, so there's probably going to be some, some guys coming and going and emotions high because of that. And then
usually the first game back after a long road trip is also usually very terrible, regardless of what team you are.
And then the next road trip, not too bad. They will go Toronto, Rangers, Devils, Islanders. So, I mean, at
you're
least
in the same spot, basically.
Yeah, you're pretty much staying in the same spot. Then the next one is Edmonton and Colorado. That's not terrible.
No, that's basically just going to Colorado.
Yeah. And then you go from Colorado to Utah, which is
not bad. That's next door. Like, that's no big deal.
And then, again, sort of weird, but we couldn't help this one because of the wildfires. But they're going to go San Jose, then Anaheim, then come home, then go back to L.A. But that L.A. game had to be stuck into the end of the season because of the wildfires. But, it'll be, we just got there, and then we head back for one day.
Yeah.
So,
I know. A very odd set of road trips, but none of the games are going to be easy against any of the teams. Calgary need to be pulling with each other at 100% if they want to even remain in the conversation. And it is difficult because, like, one of the things I was concerned about, in December was if the Flames added anything or made a trade at all, that it would disrupt the chemistry. And because chemistry is the reason why that they're here, I thought they might sink like a stone right off the hop. And unfortunately, even though like the trade was a clear win by the Flames, and frankly, Frost and Farabee have been 2 of the Flames' best players since the trade, like the whole team has kind of imploded on itself since that trade. And it'll be interesting to see, like, if they can refine the magic.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're seeing here is that this team needs every player on its roster. Like with Zari out, we're seeing issues. With Ball out, we're seeing issues. If the Flames get one more injury after, like, guy in the top 6 or top 6 defense or top 9 forwards, it's gonna make it even harder on them. Like, if you're trying to get Dryden Hunt and you're trying to get Rory Cairns and those guys to fill in when you need those wins, that's going to tank these guys. So I think that they need to find a way to stay healthy.
Yeah, while playing 100% and throwing everything at everybody the whole time. Like, it's going to be tough. Like, I really don't like I feel like there's maybe a 5% chance that the Flames actually make the playoffs based on the quality of their schedule. Even though like they're only a couple points out, it's just going to be very tough. And like it's a credit to them that they're even in this conversation. At the end of February, because like their next game's at the end of February, but I don't really see a feasible way that this team makes the playoffs.
No, I mean, it's been a fun run, as you said earlier, but if they do, great, good on them. Like, they're going to work their butts off.
They will have earned every bit of the games that they play in the playoffs if they make it. Like, and, it'll be a hats off to them fully 1,000%. But.
And even then, they're going to be so tired and banged up from that. I think, you'll probably be 5 and out.
Well, unless they play Winnipeg, and then they'll get to the second round because Winnipeg chokes every year.
Yeah, they're always choking the first, though.
Most of the time.
So, yeah, this schedule, I think, is going to be the real test for the Flames, more than the individual games. And as we said, I mean, some of these teams will get even better at the deadline. So we've got to be prepared for that as well, right? When we're now playing teams that have even more firepower than they do now.
Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be easy all the way around. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how all the young players on this team respond to playing like this. And, like we've seen Wolf, as he's gotten the starter minutes, the quality of his play has diminished a bit. Not a huge amount, but instead of stealing games left and right, he's playing like an average starter now. We'll see, and like in, guys like Coronado and Zari who have not really been in a playoff push before, do they elevate their game or do they kind of fade into the background? And we'll see. Like it's a good learning experience for everybody. Because, like, not only will they know off of their own game, but they'll see the other teams that are successful, what they do to elevate their games as well. And, for the coming seasons, like, that will be a big help for this team.
Well, and that's what we have to remember, is these guys are still in learning mode, right? This is still a team that is learning and is growing and that sort of thing. So even if you don't make it, as you said, this is a great way to say, why didn't we make it? What happened? Why did we not get there? Okay, guys, how do we change that for next year? Like, I think, this is in a lot of ways an opportunity for, for growth, for learning, for, all those things that we talk about with rebuilding teams. And you never, we as fans, we get excited when we think our team might go to the playoffs because we all like to watch playoff hockey. But to me, if they don't make it, it's okay. We came into league into the season not expecting them to be in the top half of the league. Right, not expecting them to be in a playoff picture. It's been a fun treat, bonus, whatever you want to say. But if they end up outside the playoff picture, we have to sit here in April and say to ourselves, that's okay. They did what was expected.
Yeah. And, like, realistically, if they fall into the top 10 pick range, like...
It helps them more in a lot of cases.
Well, not only that, but I think both of us would be like, well, that's not unexpected based off of what we thought at the beginning of this year, but boy, did they have a really good year. Instead of like, oh, we were at the league's punching bag the whole year, and like just like, oh god, this was a slog to get, the tenor of our show would be a lot different if we were, say, trading spots with Nashville right now, where like you just expect to get your head caved in every game. And
or you're San Jose where you've had 15 wins all year.
Yeah. Like, and like, I think our predictions every week would be a lot easier. Just predict 3 losses and you'd be right most of the time.
That's right. We'd have to figure out an overtime or a shootout for the two of us.
Yes.
I mean, it's either way, whatever happens from here on out, I think we have to be proud of what the Flames have achieved this year.
Oh, for sure.
Because none of us expected this. Nobody in the media expected this from the Flames.
No, to like even be in the conversation to actually add at the trade deadline 7 games before the trade deadline is a feat in and of itself. And, thankfully the standings are, condensed enough where even if the wheels do fall off, we will get basically what we were expecting in the first place while having the magical ride that we had. So, there's not really a lose in this situation one way or another unless they finish 11th.
Yeah, you're right. That's maybe the only downside here is if they, just because of the draft pick situation in the first, which we'll talk more about as we, get close to the trade deadline and what those implications are as we start to see it unfold. But yeah, they're going to give up a first round pick, and we just want to make sure that's not,
Yeah, go Florida pick.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not ours.
So we'll look at that as we move forward. Before we get into our predictions, let's give a quick programming note here for our listeners. We're going to be taking a couple weeks off here. We're not going to have an episode come out on the 16th nor the 23rd. So we're going to have a modified break here for what we'll call the Four Nations Face-Off break. We will have our next show on the 2nd of March. That gives us some time to see the Flames come back and comment on that week of games that they have. And then at that time, we'll be looking ahead to the trade deadline, which is that Friday. And then we'll continue a regular schedule from there. So no show, on the 17th or the 24th as we would usually have. So we'll take a couple weeks break. We'll let everybody who wants to watch the Four Nations Face-Off enjoy it. And those who want to
take the 2 weeks off.
I was going to say, like you and I, not watch hockey for a couple weeks. You can do that as well, and then we'll pick up again with you guys in March when we see how the Flames did on this first part of their return. So, Matt, you and I will predict the games today for their first game back at the Dome against the San Jose Sharks, their second one against the Washington Capitals, their third game that week is the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then the Saturday game against the Florida Panthers. 4 on the docket. Last week, you did okay.
I was right, except the wrong San Jose game.
So you thought they'd win Seattle at home. You thought they'd lose Seattle on the road, Toronto and Colorado. I thought they'd win Colorado and Seattle at home and lose the other two. What are you going to go for their return?
They beat San Jose.
That's it?
And get thumped in the other 3 games.
So then they lose to, what are the other 3?
Washington, Tampa, and Florida. I think they'll also get tuned in Carolina, too.
On a back-to-back, probably.
Yeah. Honestly, I could see them losing 6 in a row heading into the trade deadline. I do not have a lot of faith in this team right at the moment, so we'll see. I think San Jose is so terrible that you pretty much have to win just by default.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you're at home, you're not on the road yet. You're at home. You should be well rested. There's no reason not to win that one. I don't know. Your prediction seems like the right prediction here.
Yeah.
As much as I try to make different predictions, I can't in good conscience make another prediction here. So I'm going to go with the same one, and we'll both get a point if we win that.
Yeah, we'll do rock, paper, scissors for the tiebreaker on that one.
Well, you're already ahead of me by 1 point, so I'll just give you one more, and I'll get one more.
It'll be the end of season tiebreaker. So,
yeah, I can't. I think Washington's top player in Ovechkin's not going to the Four Nations face-off, so he's going to be well rested. That long road trip, I think by the time they get to Tampa Bay, even it's going to wear on them. Tampa Bay is going to do a number on them. Florida is going to do a number on them. And then
on top of it, we suck in each one of their arenas. Just generally, we do not play well in those buildings for whatever reason. So, and that's going past the last 20 years. I think we've only won 3 or 4 times in Carolina total. We're not good there, for example, and yeah.
It feels like if you're the Flames, the move for the Four Nations face-off is just take your family to Florida, come home, play one more game, and meet them there for that weekend.
Yes.
Or I guess 2 games, because you got to get through Washington first, too. But yeah, it seems like, just go down there, hang out there, and, then meet them back when you go to Tampa Bay and Florida.
Yep.
But yeah, this is going to be a rough stretch.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Honestly, if they even go 2-2 in the next week of games, like that I will consider a win. Like,
yeah, if you can beat one of those top Eastern teams, and I think the East is the better division or the better conference, this year. If you can beat one of those teams, fantastic. It shows there might be some life left.
Yeah.
But
odds are, no, I would not be betting on that. So
no, I don't see it happening. Sadly, I think the Flames have a very good possibility here of racking up a lot of losses quickly. And like you said, it's feasible to go, all of them but San Jose, or even including San Jose, losses until the deadline.
Which I honestly feel that like going 0-4 in the next week of games is more likely than going 2-2 or better.
Yeah, I don't know. If Calgary's going to beat one of these teams, I think it's going to be Washington.
Yeah.
Based on how they played the last game, like if I'm just trying to think to myself, like if they go 2-2, what does that look like? I think if you're going to sneak a win, you're going to sneak in Washington.
Yeah, I would have to agree there. And because especially in Tampa and Florida, we do not play well.
And then the question is, starting on March 1st, if we're bringing Canadian players in the States, are they going to play a 25% tariff for that?
Well, and we've even seen with the state of the government in the States, like Kuzmenko and Peltier still haven't been cleared for their visas, and it's been a couple weeks, and it's like...
I wonder if we can sneak them in on our plane when we go. Like, can we just put them in an equipment box or something and bring them to Philadelphia?
Yeah, it's like, here, we brought you a present.
It's like in wrestling when they want to hide somebody in the ring, they bring out like a box, and then the guy just slides under the ring, and he's loaded and ready to go.
Well, and you got to figure that like the NHL is probably freaking out because of the trade deadline. Like you're like it's going to impact like all the.
If you can't get these two guys in, what are we going to do in a week when you could see 30 guys changing homes?
Yeah, like what are all the guys that get traded either from Canada to the States or whatever? Like you're just not allowed to play. Like.
See, and if we knew that was coming, the smarter thing would be to put the deadline before the 2-week break, and then you got 2 weeks to iron out visas.
Yes, but
that's not the reality. The Flames play the day after, and if they can't sort this out, I think it's going to make for a very quiet trade deadline.
Oh, yeah. Like, you'll only see American teams trading with American teams, and, with most of the Canadian teams being good, like, there's not really anybody to trade with right now. So,
Calgary.
Like... we're the worst of the Canadian teams, and we're in 9th. So, like, it's not really a... But
at the same time, you know what that means? Your prices go up, right?
True. Like hey, Toronto, you want to add anything? Here, give us multiple players for Kadri or something.
Brad, like this is your roster. Who do you want back? Right? So, yeah. But, no, it'll be an interesting week when the Flames come back, and I'm really hoping that we don't talk on the second about these guys being skunked.
Yeah.
Before we leave, Wolf in all those games?
I think you have to, honestly.
I agree. Yeah,
like as much as you don't like to see, like I think realistically the first game you see Vladar will be the Carolina game.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to start playing Wolf as your real starter, you've also got to be okay to yank him, which they haven't done yet, as we've talked about. Like, if you get into one of these games and you're getting like 6-3 or, 7-1, you yank him and then put Vladar in and give Wolf that extra little bit of rest for the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they really do need to manage minutes better, as you said. And, yeah, it's going to be a tough stretch, and it'll be interesting to see... and we might see Devin Cooley play at some point too, depending on if Vladar remains a Flame or not. So we'll see.
Yeah, and even on the Cooley thing, if you're missing hockey over the next couple of weeks, remember the Wranglers still playing. Like if you haven't done it yet, go see a Wranglers game. There's a lot of great talent there. It's a fun day.
And you're going to be seeing guys that'll be pushing for the Flames lineup next year. While they're in mid-season form, which. A guy like Stromgren is looking fantastic and is looking like he'll push his way into the NHL lineup next year. He might even see some games down the stretch too. Cooley as well. A whole bunch of the blue line, whether it's Kuznetsov or Poirier or Grushnikov, like they're all like right there. So, and they're one of the best teams in the AHL. So you stand a good chance to see them winning games too.
Yeah, they're number 2 right now. Laval's above them. But, if you want to see some really good hockey with the future of the Flames, go take in a Wranglers game while the Flames are off. You will not regret it. With that, Matt, I will talk to you in March.
And as always, go Flames, go.
Fireside Chat is hosted by Dan Stevenson, co-hosted by Matt DeBorg. This episode produced and edited by Peter Marino. Fireside Chat is licensed under Creative Commons license. For full license details, visit firesidechat.ca.